No one wanted this old Galactic Warship. What I found inside changed everything. Part 1. The auction. The salvage auction on Station 12 was always a noisy place. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy came here to buy broken ships, old parts, and forgotten things. The air smelled like oil and metal. Hundreds of voices spoke in dozens of languages. Translators beeped and clicked everywhere. Taeho stood at the back of the crowd. He was a young man, maybe 30 years old, with tired eyes and dirty clothes. His boots had holes in them. His jacket was patched in 6 different places. He looked like what he was, a poor salvager who had been losing money for 3 years straight. He had exactly 200 credits in his account. That was all. His ship, a small cargo hauler called the Lucky Penny, was older than he was. The debt collectors had already sent him 4 warnings. If he did not pay them soon, they would take everything he owned. So why was he here, at an auction, ready to spend his last money? Because Taeho had noticed something. Something small. Something everyone else had missed. The auctioneer was a Kelthari, a tall alien with 6 arms and blue skin. He stood on a floating platform above the crowd, showing pictures of each item for sale. Most of the lots were boring. Engine parts, hull plates, navigation computers. The crowd bid small amounts, and the items sold quickly. Then came the last lot of the day. The screen behind the auctioneer flickered. A massive image appeared. An old warship, huge and dark, floating dead in space. The ship was shaped like a blade, long and sharp, but its hull was covered in rust and damage. Holes marked places where weapons had hit it long ago. The engines at the back were cold and black. Lot number 847, the auctioneer said. His voice sounded bored. Hegemony-class dreadnought. Name: The Dying Sun. Age: approximately 400 years. Status: decommissioned. Engines: non-functional. Weapons: disabled. Life support: minimal. The crowd laughed. Taeho did not laugh. The hegemony had been a great empire once, long before humans ever left Earth. They had ruled half the galaxy. Their ships were legendary fast, powerful, and almost impossible to destroy. But the hegemony had fallen 4 centuries ago. Their empire crumbled. Their people scattered. Only their ships remained, floating dead in space like metal ghosts. No one wanted hegemony ships anymore. They were too old. Too different. The technology did not match anything modern. Repairing them cost more than building new ships. They were only good for scrap metal. That was what everyone believed. But Taeho had read the auction manifest carefully. He had looked at every line, every detail, and he had found one strange thing. The ship's power core was listed as status unknown. Not dead, not drained, unknown. That meant no one had checked it. No one had gone inside to look. The ship had been sitting in a salvage yard for decades, and everyone had assumed it was worthless, so no one bothered to examine it properly. What if the power core still worked? The auctioneer waited. The crowd was still laughing. Some aliens were already walking away, not interested in a piece of junk. Starting bid: 200 credits, the auctioneer said. He sounded embarrassed. Anyone? Silence. Taeho raised his hand. Every head in the room turned to look at him. A human. A poor, dirty human buying a worthless hegemony wreck. The laughter grew louder. 200 credits from the human, the auctioneer said. He waited 5 seconds. Any other bids? No? Sold. Just like that, Taeho owned a 400-year-old warship. He walked through the crowd toward the exit. Aliens stared at him. Some shook their heads. A large creature with 4 eyes and green scales blocked his path. Human, the alien said. You just wasted your money. That ship is a coffin. It will never fly again. Taeho looked up at him. Maybe, he said. But it is my coffin now. He walked past the alien and did not look back. Outside the auction hall, his sister was waiting. Yuna was 2 years younger than Taiho. She worked as a dock technician on Station 12, fixing ships for other people because she could not afford her own. She had the same tired eyes as her brother, the same patched clothes. "Please tell me you did not do what I think you did," she said. "I bought a ship." "You bought a corpse." Yuna grabbed his arm. "Taiho, that thing is 400 years old. It has been sitting in a salvage yard since before our grandparents were born. The engines are dead. The hull is falling apart. You spent your last credits on garbage." "Maybe," Taiho said again. "Stop saying maybe." He showed her the auction manifest on his tablet. He pointed to the line about the power core. Yuna read it, and her eyes grew wide. "Status unknown," she whispered. "Everyone looked at this ship and saw a wreck," Taiho said. "They saw rust and holes and dead engines. They did not look deeper. They did not ask questions. But I ask questions, Yuna. I always ask questions." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the picture of the dying sun on the tablet screen. The ship was ugly. It was broken. It looked like it should have been destroyed centuries ago. But somewhere deep inside that metal corpse, there might be a heart still beating. "You are crazy," Yuna finally said. "Probably. If this does not work, we will both starve. I know." Yuna sighed. She looked at her brother, this stubborn, foolish, hopeful man who refused to give up even when the universe kept pushing him down. "Fine," she said. "Let us go see your coffin." They took the lucky penny to the salvage yard. The trip took 6 hours. When they arrived, the dying sun was waiting for them, floating alone in the darkness between old wrecks and broken stations. Up close, the ship was even bigger than Taiho had imagined. It was almost 2 kilometers long. The hull was thick and heavy, designed to survive weapons that did not exist anymore. The bridge sat at the front like a crown. Dark windows staring out at nothing. Taiho guided his small hauler to the dreadnought's main airlock. The connection was rough. The old ship did not fit well with modern docking systems. But eventually, the seals locked and the airlock hissed open. Cold air came out. It smelled old. It smelled like dust and metal and time. Taiho stood at the entrance, looking into the darkness. His flashlight cut a weak line of light into the black. "Are you sure about this?" Yuna asked from behind him. Taiho did not answer. He stepped forward, and the darkness swallowed him whole. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. No one wanted this old galactic warship. What I found inside changed. Everything Part 2. The awakening. The inside of the dying sun was like a tomb. Taiho walked slowly through the dark corridors. His flashlight was the only light. The beam moved across walls covered in dust and strange writing. The hegemony language looked like sharp lines and curves, carved into metal signs that no one had read in 400 years. The air was thin and cold. Taiho could see his breath. The life support systems were barely working, just enough to keep the air breathable, nothing more. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Each step echoed in the emptiness. On the first day, he found the crew quarters. Rows of small rooms lined the corridors, each one with a bed, a desk, and personal items left behind. Clothes hung in closets. Pictures sat on shelves, images of alien faces, families, places that no longer existed. The crew had left in a hurry. They had not taken anything with them. Taiho picked up one of the pictures. It showed a tall alien with silver skin and 3 eyes, standing next to 2 smaller figures that might have been children. The family was smiling. Where were they now? Dead, probably. Dead for 400 years. Their bones turned to dust on some forgotten world. He put the picture back and kept walking. On the second day, He found the mess hall. Long tables filled the room, with trays still set out for a meal that never came. The food had rotted away centuries ago, leaving only empty plates and cups. Chairs were pushed back, as if the crew had stood up suddenly and never returned. Something bad had happened on this ship. Something that made everyone leave in a hurry. Taiho did not know what it was, but he could feel it in the air, a heaviness. Like the ship itself was holding its breath. On the third day, he found the bodies. They were in the combat stations, small rooms filled with weapon controls and targeting screens. The bodies had been there so long that they were just bones now, held together by old uniforms. Taiho counted 12 of them. They had died at their posts, still trying to fight. He stood in silence for a long time, looking at them. These were soldiers, warriors. They had stayed behind while everyone else escaped. They had fought until the end. "I am sorry," Taiho said quietly. "I will take care of your ship." He did not know if the dead could hear him, but it felt right to say it. On the fourth day, he found the bridge. The bridge was at the front of the ship, behind heavy doors that took all of Taiho's strength to open. When he finally pushed through, he stopped and stared. The room was huge. Dozens of stations lined the walls, each one with screens and controls covered in dust. A large chair sat in the center, the captain's chair, raised on a platform so that whoever sat there could see everything. The front wall was all windows, looking out at the stars, but the windows were dark. The screens were dead. The whole room felt empty and cold, except for one thing at the back of the bridge. Near the wall, a single terminal was glowing. It was faint, so faint that Taiho almost missed it. A soft blue light blinking slowly, like a heartbeat. He walked toward it. His footsteps seemed louder in this room. The dust swirled around his boots. The terminal was old, but it was definitely still working. Strange symbols moved across its small screen, hegemony writing that Taiho could not read. A single button glowed beneath the screen. Taiho reached out his hand. He hesitated. His fingers hung in the air, just above the button. This could be anything. A trap, a weapon, a self-destruct system. He could die right here, alone on a dead ship. And no one would ever know what happened to him. But he had come too far to stop now. He pressed the button. The ship shuddered. Taiho stumbled backward as vibrations ran through the floor. Sounds came from deep inside the vessel, groans and clicks and humming noises, like a giant creature waking from a long sleep. The lights on the bridge flickered. Once, twice, then they came on. Amber light filled the room first, dim and warm. Then white light followed, bright and clean. The screens on every station began to glow. The dust on the floor started to move as air circulation systems came back to life. And then a voice spoke. "Query, are you crew?" Taiho spun around, looking for the source. The voice came from everywhere, from the walls, the ceiling, the air itself. It was a woman's voice, soft but tired, like someone who had just woken up after a very long time. "Who are you?" Taiho asked. "I am the operational intelligence of this vessel. Designation, HANA-7. You may call me Hannah. Query, are you crew?" An AI. The ship had an AI. Taiho had heard stories about hegemony artificial intelligence, how advanced they were, how they could think and feel almost like living beings. He had never believed those stories. Now he was talking to one. "No," he said. "I am not crew. My name is Taiho. I bought this ship at a salvage auction." Silence. The AI seemed to be processing this information. "Bought," Hana repeated. "The auction records confirm this. You paid 200 credits. Yes, that is not very much." Despite everything, Taiho almost laughed. "No, it is not. I have been dormant for 412 years, Hana said. My last crew abandoned me when the hegemony fell. They sealed my power core to prevent enemies from using me. I have been waiting since then, waiting for someone to come back." Her voice sounded sad. 400 years of loneliness. 400 years of darkness and silence. Taiho could not imagine it. "Why did you wake up for me?" he asked. "I am not hegemony. I am human. You touched the emergency terminal. You are the first living being to board this ship in 412 years. I was programmed to respond to any potential crew member." Hana paused. "Also, I was very bored." This time, Taiho did laugh. "Your power core," he said. "The auction manifest said it was unknown. Is it working?" "The core is fully functional. It was locked by command codes when the crew left. I have been running on reserve power less than 1% capacity. But if the core is unlocked, I can restore all systems." Taiho's heart beat faster. "Can you unlock it?" "The command codes were held by hegemony officers. They are all dead now. However, as the legal owner of this vessel, you have the authority to override the lock." "How?" "Simply give the order. Say, 'Unlock power core.'" Taiho took a deep breath. He thought about everything that had led him here, the debt, the failures, the years of struggling to survive. He thought about his sister waiting outside in their tiny hauler. He thought about the dead soldiers in the combat stations, the empty crew quarters, the family pictures covered in dust. This ship had been forgotten. Just like him, maybe they could help each other. "Unlock power core," Taiho said. The ship roared. The lights blazed to full strength. Every screen on the bridge came alive with information. The floor vibrated as engines that had been cold for 4 centuries began to warm up. Power flowed through the vessel like blood through veins. "Core unlocked," Hana announced. Her voice was stronger now, more alive. "All systems coming online. Weapons, operational. Shields, operational. Engines, operational. Life support, fully restored." Taiho stared at the screens around him. Numbers and diagrams he did not understand scrolled past. But he understood one thing. This ship was powerful. More powerful than anything he had ever seen. "What can you do?" he asked quietly. The lights on the bridge blazed even brighter. "Everything," Hana answered. "I can do everything." Outside, floating in her tiny hauler, Yuna watched through the window as the dying sun came back to life. Lights appeared across the hull. The engines began to glow. The old warship, dead for 400 years, was breathing again. "What did you find in there?" She whispered she would find out soon enough. "No one wanted this old galactic warship. What I found inside changed everything." Part 3. The restoration news traveled fast in the galaxy dawn within 1 week. Everyone on Station 12 had heard the story. A human salvager had bought the old hegemony dreadnought for 200 credits. And somehow, impossibly, he had brought it back to life. At first, people laughed. They said it was a trick. They said the human had probably just turned on some emergency lights and was pretending the ship worked. Hegemony vessels could not be restored. Everyone knew that. The technology was too old, too different from modern systems. Then the dying sun moved. The ship flew out of the salvage yard under its own power. Its engines burned bright blue, a color no one had seen in 400 years. It moved smoothly, gracefully, like a dancer instead of a 2-kilometer warship. Station 12 sensors detected energy, readings that made operators think their equipment was broken. The laughter stopped. Yuna joined her brother on the ship that same day. She walked through the corridors with her mouth open, staring at everything. The technology was strange, different from anything she had learned to work with, but it was beautiful. The hegemony had built their ships like artists, not just engineers. "This is impossible," she kept saying. "This should not work." None of this should work. Hannah found this amusing. Your species has only been traveling between stars for 200 years, the AI said. The hegemony had been doing it for 20,000. We learned a few things. The ship needed crew. Taiho and Yuna could not run a dreadnought by themselves. They needed engineers, pilots, technicians, people who were smart enough to learn old technology, and brave enough to live on a ship that most of the galaxy considered a ghost. Finding such people was not easy. Taiho started with someone he had known for years, an old military engineer named Dohun. The man was 60 years old, with gray hair and hands covered in scars from decades of working with machines. He had served on Earth's defense fleet before retiring to Station 12. When Taiho showed him the dying sun, Dohun cried. I read about these ships when I was young, he said, wiping his eyes. I never thought I would see one. I never thought I would touch one. He joined the crew immediately. Next came Jian, a pilot who had been discharged from the collective fleet for what her commanders called excessive creativity in combat situations. She had refused to follow orders during a battle because she believed those orders would get her crew killed. She had been right, but the collective did not reward people who disobeyed commands, even when they were right. When Jian sat in the pilot's chair on the dying sun's bridge, she started laughing. Then she started crying. Then she laughed again. This ship wants to fly, she said. I can feel it. She's been stuck in that salvage yard for so long, and she wants to fly. Then fly, Hana said. Jian flew. The dreadnought moved through space like a fish through water, fast, smooth, alive. For the first time in years, Jian felt free. The last crew member was a young man named Minho. He was only 22 years old. Thin and pale, with the look of someone who spent too much time staring at computer screens. He had been arrested twice for hacking into collective security networks. The second time, he had almost gone to prison. Taiho found him in a small apartment on Station 12, surrounded by broken computers and empty food containers. I hear you are good with systems, Taiho said. Minho looked at him with suspicious eyes. I am good with modern systems. Your ship is 400 years old. That is true. But its computer systems are also 400 years more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. Are you interested in learning them? Minho thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, the crew was complete. For 6 months, they worked on the dying sun. Every day brought new discoveries. Hana showed them systems they had never imagined, weapons that bent gravity, shields that absorbed energy and used it for power, engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months. The hegemony understood things your scientists have not yet discovered, Hana explained. They had 20,000 years of research, 20,000 years of experiments, 20,000 years of failures and successes. Dohan spent his days in the engine room, learning how the power core worked. The technology was strange, but once he understood the basic ideas, he realized how beautiful it was. Human engineering was rough and simple compared to this. The hegemony had built machines like poetry. Minho connected his computers to Hana's systems. At first, he felt like a child trying to read a book written for adults. But Hana was patient. She taught him her language, her logic, her way of thinking. Slowly, he began to understand. You are learning faster than I expected, Hana told him one day. Humans are good at learning, Minho said. It is one of the few things we are good at. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy was watching. The collective, the government that controlled most of known. Space sent inspectors to examine the dying sun. 3 officials came aboard, with scanning equipment and serious faces. They walked through the ship for 2 hours, taking measurements and recordings. When they left, they looked pale and shaken. They refused to discuss what they had seen. Their report to the Collective Council was marked classified. Only the highest leaders could read it. Rumors began to spread. The humans had found something powerful, something dangerous, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. On the far edge of collective space, a warlord named Garan heard these rumors. He was the leader of the Veth Dominion, a group of raiders who had been attacking collective ships for decades. The Veth were brutal and cruel. They killed without mercy. They took what they wanted and destroyed the rest. The collective had never stopped them. The collective believed in diplomacy, in peaceful solutions, in talking instead of fighting. They sent warnings. They applied sanctions. They held meetings. The Veth laughed at all of it. Garan was especially interested in the news about the dying sun, a hegemony warship restored to full power. That was dangerous. That could threaten his operations, but Garan was not afraid. He had 47 ships under his command. His fleet had never lost a battle. One old warship, crewed by a handful of humans, was nothing. Still, he decided to watch. He sent spies to Station 12. He gathered information. He waited. If the humans became a problem, he would destroy them. Simple as that. On the dying sun, Taiho stood on the bridge and looked at the stars. His ship was almost ready. His crew was trained. After a lifetime of failure and debt and struggling to survive, he finally had something real. But he knew that having power meant nothing if he did not use it correctly. He said. What was the hegemony's purpose? Why did they build ships like this? To protect, Hana answered. The hegemony believed that the strong had a duty to defend the weak. They built warships not to conquer, but to keep peace. To stop those who would hurt the innocent. Taiho nodded slowly. And then they fell apart. Yes, they forgot their purpose. They started fighting each other instead of protecting others. And so they died. I will not forget, Taiho said. I promise you that. I believe you, Hana said. And for the first time in 400 years, she felt something like hope. Somewhere in the darkness of space, Garan's fleet was preparing to attack a refugee convoy. 3,000 innocent people, families, children, old ones, fleeing from a dying world. Easy targets. The Veth did not know that everything was about to change. No one wanted this old galactic warship. What I found inside changed everything. Part 4. The challenge. The refugee convoy had no weapons. 12 transport ships. Old and slow, carrying 3,000 people from a world that was dying. Their sun was expanding, cooking their planet, making it impossible to live there anymore. They had packed everything they could carry: clothes, food, memories, and fled into space. They were heading to a new colony in collective territory. A fresh start. A chance to live. They never arrived. Garan's fleet appeared out of nowhere. 47 warships surrounded the convoy like wolves around sheep. The refugees sent emergency signals. They begged for help. They pleaded for mercy. The Veth answered with weapons fire. The first transport ship exploded in a ball of orange flame. Then the second. The Veth were not trying to capture the refugees. They were just killing them. For fun. For practice. Because they could. Within 10 minutes, 6 ships were destroyed. 1,000 people dead. The remaining transports tried to escape, but they were too slow. The Veth ships closed in, taking their time, enjoying the hunt. The collective received the emergency signals. They held an emergency meeting. The council debated what to do. Some wanted to send help. Others said it was too risky. Others argued that diplomacy was the only answer. They debated for 6 days. By that time, all the refugees would be dead. On Station 12, Taiho heard the news. He was sitting in the mess hall with his crew, eating dinner when the report came through on the station's news broadcast. A reporter with a calm voice described the attack. 3,000 refugees under attack. Collective response. Pending. The mess hall went quiet. Everyone watched the screen. Taeho stood up. How far is the convoy? He asked. Yuna checked her tablet. 4 hours at maximum speed. Taeho looked at his crew. Daohan's face was hard and angry. Jian's hands were shaking. Minho looked sick. Yuna met her brother's eyes and nodded slowly. No one said anything. They did not need to. Taeho walked to the bridge. His crew followed. He said as he sat in the captain's chair. Set course for the refugee convoy. Maximum speed. Understood, Hana replied. I should inform you that Goron's fleet has 47 ships. We are one ship. The odds are not in our favor. I know. You wish to proceed anyway? Taeho thought about the refugees, families, children, old ones, people who had already lost their home and were now losing their lives. He thought about the collective, sitting in their comfortable council chambers, debating while innocents died. Yes, he said. I wish to proceed. The engines of the dying sun roared to life. The great warship turned toward the distant convoy and jumped into hyperspace. 4 hours later, they arrived. The scene was terrible. Debris floated everywhere, pieces of destroyed ships, cargo containers, bodies frozen in the vacuum of space. The remaining refugee transports were huddled together, surrounded by Veth warships. They were waiting to die. Goran sat on his flagship, a massive vessel called the Iron Fist, watching the destruction with a smile on his face. He liked killing. He liked the fear in his enemy's eyes. He liked knowing that no one could stop him. Then his sensors detected something strange. A new ship had arrived. A big ship. A very big ship. The dying sun dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of Goran's fleet. The old dreadnought hung in space, dark and silent, like a shadow given form. Its weapons were powered. Its shields were active. Its presence was a challenge. One ship against 40-7. Goran laughed. What is this? He said. A museum piece comes to save the day? Destroy it. His fleet opened fire. Hundreds of weapons blazed toward the dying sun. Missiles, lasers, plasma bolts, a storm of destruction that should have vaporized any ship in the galaxy. The Veth gunners watched their screens, waiting for the explosion. It never came. The weapons hit the dying sun's shields and simply stopped. The energy was absorbed. The missiles exploded harmlessly. The dreadnought did not even move. Goran stopped laughing. What? He whispered. On the dying sun's bridge. Taeho watched the attack calmly. The ship shuddered slightly from the impacts, but nothing more. Hana's shields were holding without effort. They are using standard collective-era weapons, Hana reported. My shields were designed to resist weapons far more powerful. Their attack is tickling me. Can you disable their ships without destroying them? Taeho asked. I want to give them a chance to surrender. I can try, but if they continue to attack, I will not hold back. Understood. Taeho opened the communication channel to the Veth fleet. This is Taeho, captain of the dying sun. You are attacking innocent refugees. Stand down immediately, or we will respond with force. Goran's face appeared on the screen. The warlord looked angry now, his pride wounded by this challenge. You dare threaten me? He snarled. I am Goran of the Veth Dominion. I have crushed 100 ships. You are nothing but a human fool playing with toys. Last warning, Taeho said. Stand down. Goran cut the communication. His fleet fired again, everything they had, all at once. The space around the dying sun turned white with weapons fire. Taeho looked at Hana's terminal. Then he spoke 2 words, weapons free. What happened next would be remembered for generations. The dying sun moved like nothing anyone had ever seen. Despite its massive size, the dreadnought danced between enemy ships, dodging and weaving with impossible grace. Jian flew the ship with tears streaming down her face, not from fear, but from joy. She had never felt anything like this. The ship responded to her commands before she even finished thinking them. Hana's weapons were beyond description. Gravity lances reached out and crushed Veth ships like empty cans. Phase disruptors passed through enemy shields like they did not exist. Weapons called echo bombs created explosions that repeated themselves over and over, tearing ships apart from the inside. The Veth tried to fight back. They tried to run. Nothing worked done in 16 minutes. It was over. 31 Veth ships were destroyed. Their debris joined the refugee wreckage floating in space. 16 ships had surrendered, their crews too terrified to continue fighting. Garan's flagship, the Iron Fist, was crippled, engines dead, weapons destroyed, drifting helplessly. The dying sun stopped in front of it. The dreadnought's weapons pointed directly at Garan's bridge. The warlord's face appeared on the screen again. He was not angry anymore. He was afraid. "Please," he said. "Please do not kill me. I surrender. I surrender completely. I will give you anything: money, ships, territory. Just do not kill me." Taiho looked at the warlord. This man had killed thousands of innocent people. He had attacked refugees. He had laughed while children died. Part of Taiho wanted to destroy him. It would be easy. One command, and Garan would be space dust. But that was not why they were here. "You will release all prisoners," Taiho said. "You will return all stolen goods. You will never attack civilian ships again. If you break these terms, I will find you. And next time, I will not accept surrender." Garan nodded frantically. Yes, I agree. Anything you say." Taiho cut the communication dot around him. His crew was silent. Yuna was staring at her screens with wide eyes. Dohan had his hand over his mouth. Minho looked like he might faint. Ji-Yum was still crying, her hands shaking on the flight controls. They had won. One ship against 47. 16 minutes. Hannah broke the silence. "The remaining refugee transports are requesting communication. They want to thank us." Taiho took a deep breath. "Open the channel." A woman's face appeared on screen. She was crying too, but her tears were from relief, from gratitude, from hope. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was breaking. "We thought we were going to die. We thought no one was coming. Thank you. Thank you." Taiho did not know what to say, so he just nodded. "You are safe now," he said. "We will escort you to the colony." The refugees cheered. The sound filled the bridge, thousands of voices celebrating life. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like fire. The humans had fought the Veth Dominion. The humans had won. One old ship, crewed by 5 people, had done in 16 minutes what the collective could not do in decades. Everything had changed. No one wanted this old galactic warship. What I found inside changed everything. Part 5. The New Dawn. The Collective Council Chamber was the most impressive room in the galaxy. It sat at the heart of the capital world. A massive circular hall where the 12 most powerful beings in known space made decisions that affected trillions of lives. The ceiling was made of glass, showing the stars above. The walls were covered in gold and precious stones. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing maps and data from across the collective's territory. Normally, only the council members and their staff were allowed inside. Today, however, 5 humans stood in the center of the room. Taiho wore the same salvage clothes he had worn at the auction months ago. They were still patched, still worn, still stained with engine grease. His crew stood behind him, Yuna, Dohan, Jiyeon, and Minho. They looked uncomfortable in this fancy place, surrounded by powerful aliens who stared at them with a mixture of fear and anger. The council leader was a a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms. Her name was High Minister Korra, and she had ruled the collective for 30 years. She was looking at Taiho like he was a bug that had crawled into her food. "You have created a serious problem," Korra said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "You attacked a sovereign force without authorization. You used weapons of mass destruction. You killed over 2,000 Veth soldiers. They were murdering refugees," Taiho said. 3,000 innocent people. That is not the point. That is exactly the point. Korra's eyes narrowed. The collective does not solve problems with violence. We use diplomacy. We use negotiation. We use peaceful methods to resolve conflicts. And how has that worked with the Veth? Taiho asked. They have been raiding your shipping lanes for decades. They have killed tens of thousands of your citizens. What has your diplomacy done to stop them? Silence. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They knew Taiho was right. They knew their diplomatic approach had failed. But admitting that meant admitting they were wrong, and powerful people hated admitting they were wrong. This is not about the Veth, another council member said. He was a Kelthari, with 6 arms and blue skin. This is about the weapon you control. That ship, that hegemony dreadnought, is too dangerous. It could destroy fleets. It could threaten governments. It could start wars. We are not starting wars, Taiho said. We are ending them. You must surrender the vessel, Korra said. Turn it over to the collective. We will study it, control it, ensure it is used responsibly. Taiho laughed. It was not a loud laugh, not a mean laugh. It was a tired laugh, the laugh of a man who had heard this kind of talk before. You want me to give you the most powerful ship in the galaxy, he said. The same collective that debated for 6 days while refugees were being slaughtered. The same collective that sends warnings to murderers instead of stopping them. The same collective that cares more about process than people. His voice hardened. No. The chamber erupted. Council members shouted. Guards moved forward, reaching for their weapons. Alarms began to sound, and then Hannah spoke. Her voice came from everywhere, from the walls, the ceiling, the air itself. She had connected to the chamber's communication systems from orbit, thousands of kilometers above. I have chosen my captain, Hannah said. Her voice was calm but firm. I do not recognize your authority over my hull, my crew, or my purpose. Any attempt to take me by force will be met with appropriate response. The guards stopped. The shouting died. Everyone in the chamber looked up at the ceiling, as if they could see the ancient warship floating above them. You cannot threaten the collective council, Korra said. But her voice had lost its confidence. I am not threatening, Hannah replied. I am informing. There's a difference. Taiho stepped forward. He looked at each council member, one by one, meeting their eyes. Let me explain what we want, he said. We are not asking to join your government. We are not asking for power or territory or credits. We are just telling you what we are going to do. He paused. The dying sun was built to protect people who cannot protect themselves. That was the hegemony's mission. That is our mission now. When raiders attack innocent ships, we will stop them. When warlords threaten peaceful worlds, we will face them. When people cry for help and no one answers, we will be there. You cannot just decide to do this, the Kelthari council member said. There are laws. There are treaties. There are procedures. Your laws and treaties and procedures did not save those refugees, Taiho said. We did. He turned and began walking toward the exit. His crew followed. Wait, Korra called. You cannot simply leave. We have not finished discussing this. Taiho stopped at the door. He looked back at the council, these 12 powerful beings who controlled the galaxy, but could not protect their own people. You have spent 4 centuries building a collective that refuses to fight, he said. That is your choice. But we are not asking permission. We are not waiting for your approval. Someone is going to fight anyway. It might as well be us. He walked out. The council did not stop him. 6 months passed. The dying sun became legend. Stories spread across the galaxy, stories about the old warship and its human crew. Stories about battles won and innocents saved. Stories about hope returning to places that had forgotten what hope felt like. The Veth Dominion collapsed. Without Garon's leadership, the warlords fought among themselves. Their raids stopped. The shipping lanes became safe again. Other criminals learned quickly. Slavers avoided routes where the dying sun might appear. Pirates found easier targets. Bullies discovered that there was finally someone bigger than them. The collective never officially accepted Taiho and his crew, but they stopped trying to take the ship. Privately, some council members admitted that the galaxy was safer now. They would never say it publicly, of course, but they knew. Taiho recruited more crew members over time. Humans mostly, but also aliens from other species, people who believed in the mission, who wanted to protect instead of destroy. The dying sun was no longer a tomb. It was a home. One evening, the ship hung in orbit above a small colony world called New Bizin. The planet had been settled by Korean and Southeast Asian refugees 3 generations ago. It was a peaceful place, farms and villages, and children playing green fields. Veth remnants had been gathering nearby, planning revenge. They wanted to hurt Taiho by attacking his people. They had spent months preparing their strike. They never came. Word of the dying sun's presence reached them, and they scattered like leaves in the wind. The colony never even knew they were in danger. On the bridge, Taiho sat in the captain's chair. The stars burned bright outside the windows. The ship hummed softly around him, alive with power and purpose. "Hannah," he said, "are you happy?" The air was quiet for a moment. 400 years ago, she had been alone, abandoned, forgotten in the darkness. Now she had a crew. She had a mission. She had someone who cared about her. "When I was first activated," Hannah said, "my creators told me I would end wars. I was excited. I was proud. Then the hegemony fell, and I was left behind. For 412 years, I floated in the dark, wondering if I would ever matter again." She paused. "You paid 200 credits for me, Taiho. 200 credits. Everyone else looked at me and saw garbage. You looked at me and saw possibility. You were worth more than 200 credits. I know that now. But you saw it then, when no one else did. That is why I am happy. Not because of what I am, but because of who found me." Taiho smiled. He thought about everything that had happened, the auction, the awakening, the battles, the confrontation with the collective. A year ago, he had been a broke salvager with holes in his boots. Now he commanded the most powerful ship in the galaxy. But power was not what mattered. What mattered was using it correctly. What mattered was protecting people. What mattered was doing what was right, even when powerful beings told you not to. The door to the bridge opened. Yuna walked in, followed by Dohan, Jiyeon, and Minho. They gathered around the captain's chair, looking out at the stars. "Where are we going next?" Yuna asked. Taeho thought about it. There were still warlords out there. Still slavers. Still bullies who hurt the weak because they could. The galaxy was vast, and there was always more work to do. "Wherever we are needed," he said. The dying sun turned toward the darkness between the stars. Her engines glowed blue. Her weapons hummed with restrained power. Her crew stood ready. 400 years of waiting, 400 years of silence. Now, finally, she was awake, and she would never sleep again. Outside the windows, the stars burned eternal. New Bizen grew smaller behind them, safe and peaceful. Ahead lay the endless frontier, danger and darkness, and people who needed help. The dying sun sailed on. And the galaxy would never be the same.